Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars. SoundCartel. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. "20 years ago, terms like chatbots, neural architecture, synthetic data and EFTs simply didn't exist. Today, artificial intelligence, or AI, has spawned a new language that's transformed customer experiences, operational processes and decision-making. AI is complicated, but it's Steve Sammartino's job to break it down so we mere mortals can understand just some of it and apply those AI tools to our own businesses. Steve's a futurist, author, keynote speaker, and was host of The Rebound on Channel 9. Steve begins by discussing the advances in large language models. The first time, he says, we've had an artificial intelligence which is horizontal. What on earth does that mean? Steve explains to Chris Ashmore.
A new form of artificial intelligence arrived about 7 years ago when the first research papers happened. And that was on what is known as large language models. And in addition to all of the data and computation improvements, large language models are fundamentally different because it's the first time we've had an artificial intelligence which is horizontal. And I'll explain that. What that means is that AIs can do a multitude of things and jump from context to context. Traditionally, AI has been good at one particular thing. And the example I often use is Google Maps. It's amazing to get you the quickest way based on the road, the traffic, how fast you're driving, what the speed limits are, and all of those things. But it can only do that within a singular context. And it's the same with search, Google search. It can only operate in a single context. And so it's an if this, then that protocol. But large language models, because they are based on human language, can work on marketing, legal, engineering, and cross from context to context, because language is the base of all human knowledge. And so what you have is AIs which can be used in a multitude of ways with the same format. And that's really what's at the base of this, I'm going to call it a revolution, that we're having now. And ChatGPT was the first, but all of the AIs built on that, Google Bard and what's happening with Facebook and other companies is based on this large language model.
So that's the big difference than what we had before. For example, when I used to ask Siri some questions, she'd often reply with, "I'm sorry, I don't understand." But now she really does understand, and she can reply, well, I don't know if Siri can, but these models, they can reply as if you're talking to a real human being.
Yeah, that's right. And what they do is they operate in a similar way to human biology works, where it has a neural network where it looks for context and patterns to match rather than following a set of instructions. So, artificial intelligence has been around since the 50s, basically the ability of a computer to make a decision or do something. But this is really different because what it does is it looks for patterns and then gives you an answer based on probability. And in many ways, it's only possible because we've been training the internet and populating the internet for 30 years. And it's not just the words that it can come up with. It's the fact that we've been posting photos and images and video and actually describing what they are. And so the large language models and image generation models, generative AI, let's call it, looks for patterns in the pixels because it's seen so many photos of Hawaii with palm trees and beaches and sand. It actually matches the words with the pixel patterns and then puts them together. And it's the same with video. And when you have voiceovers on videos, it actually can learn what the images are. And that's really similar to the way human biology works. And that's why some people are a little bit scared about it.
Well, should we be scared?
There's two things that people are scared of. The first one is taking jobs away. And I just want to remove everyone's fear there. For every job that technology takes away, it usually adds to. And a simple way to remember this is that before the Industrial Revolution, more than 90% of humans worked directly in food production. And now it's somewhere between 3 and 5% around the world. We found other things to do. If we think of the smartphone, there's now 27 million app developers around the world. We've got social media managers and content producers. So typically what happens is efficiency is found, costs get reduced in the old area, you have automation, and then we move on to new things. And so I think we're going to have a creativity explosion because generative AI gives us newfound abilities. So we now have a PhD in every single subject, whether it's, legal or engineering. And now you can become an artist even if you can't play an instrument or you don't know how to draw. What matters is your imagination plugged on top of the AI's capabilities. So we've had machinery to replace our body parts for a long time. Now we have machinery to enhance our minds.
In a practical sense, how can businesses use AI then?
Yeah, I think for small business, it's really going to be an efficiency doctrine. Many of the things that we had to outsource, whether it's legal, whether it's creative, whether it's video production, whether it's content production, all of those things now can be automated to a very large extent. Another thing that we can do is we can train the AIs to do things for us. And because the internet used to be a giant filing cabinet, it was basically a repository for things that humans had made. You would use the internet in a way where you would try and find the thing that you need. And maybe you didn't find that perfect thing and you had to Google search it a few times. But now the internet is a giant brain, which means you can create the thing that you need in your business. But because it's a brain, we can add our data to that. So if you're running a company and you've got your hard drive filled with information on your finances or your previous strategy plans or information about your customers, you can plug that into the AI, add to its database, and then ask it to pull out something specific for you. So that's one of the real differences. And I encourage business owners to really experiment with the different AIs out there, but think of it as a place where you can put things into that brain for it to analyze for you and pull things out, whether it's generating images based on some that you've sent it or described it, or putting in your financial information or putting in strategy documents. It can really get you that first version, 90% quicker than you'd be able to do it yourself. And so that's one of the first ways to do it. And OpenAI have now a GPT store, which is kind of like an app store where you can create your own GPT. You can keep it private. So you could have your own corporate GPT that goes through your database and has a whole lot of information. And your staff members can just pull things out of it rather than trawling through all the hard drive and trying to find old emails. So that's one of the really key ways I think it can be used going forward.
Does that mean a lay person like me, I can create my own ChatGPT app?
Yeah, you absolutely can. And here's the thing, Chris, is that everyone now is an AI developer, right? Because the skill that you need is to be able to speak or type. If you can do that, you have all of the skills you need to become an AI developer. And that's what revolutions are about. I often say that revolutions have two key factors that help you know that you're in one. The first one is the technology feels like magic, right? And generative AI feels like that. It feels like magic. You get it to make videos and movies and write poetry and songs and emails, whatever you want, right? It feels like magic. But the second and most important one is that it's available to everyone. You don't need a special skill. That happened with the smartphone. That happened with the internet. That happened with vehicles. That happened with TV, where you had the world streaming into your lounge room. This is an absolute revolution because anyone can do it. And that's why I encourage people to go in there and play and create their own little GPT. I even created Steve Sammartino AI, where I uploaded my books, my podcast interviews, my TV show scripts, all of my blog, and it answers questions, maybe even better than I would, but they sound like me.
Any other advances or trends in AI that we should be keeping an eye on?
Yeah, I think that we're probably going to see digital twins coming in. And when I say a digital twin, essentially we can upload all of our personal knowledge into an AI that does work for us. And the example that I gave just then of me was one that I did. But I think that Apple this year, they've been noticeably quiet, but they have been acquiring a lot of AI companies. I think later this year, they're going to launch the first personal AI for everyone, where it takes everything that's inside your phone. It learns about your finances, your friends, your emails, trawls through all of your personal data. And Apple can do this because they protect privacy. I think they'll have an AI that becomes our own digital twin that can answer the phone on our behalf in our voices, organize meetings, do things for us, undertake e-commerce, do our finances, pay our bills. I really think that's going to happen. And I think it'll happen this year. So all of us will end up with a quasi-digital twin where all of our information that's in the cloud and in our phones can then be used to take a load off some of the work that we do. And then I think another thing, Chris, that will happen is we're going to see really big and interesting copyright battles, because we start to get to the era of who owns your biology. Like, who owns your face? Who owns your voice? How do you get to do this? We've seen songs being made in famous people like The Weeknd go viral that were made by AI that sound like him. And so we're going to see AI laws get serious and, personal biometric copyright become a really interesting place as we go forward.
That was futurist Steve Sammartino. Business Essentials Daily is a SoundCartel podcast. Producers are Nick Schildberger, Chris Ashmore, Jeff Waters and myself. Technical production by Pete Letts. I'm Nicole Goodman. Thanks for listening. We'll bring you more Be Daily next week. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.